you hear about me or find out about me?
I just did my research because I go to school at University of North Carolina, Greensboro.
Okay.
So I was just looking for experienced production managers in the area at first. And I just came across your website, K2 Productions, and I looked into the company, and then I actually noticed that you were the production manager for them. So then I just went
Cool.
out and reached out.
Yeah, so production managing is just like one of the sort of many things that I do here because working in a smaller production company, so I got to wear a lot of hats. But usually for our bigger productions that we have, like full crews on, yeah, production manage. So what kind of questions do you have?
Just it's where would be a good place to start or search for an internship if trying starting to get involved.
Right. Um. Okay. Well, so North Carolina, I know that I'm not sure what School of the Arts or UNCG tells you about working in the industry, but it's a lot of production companies that work in smaller regions. Like even though we're based out of Greensboro, we have a small tight crew that sort of travels the Eastern Seaboard. So we man it. Our region of work can be anywhere from like Miami to Philadelphia to like wherever.
Okay.
But we're not as big as um, we're not as big a company in size as places like Fincannon Studios in Wilmington or Creekside in Wilmington or the ones in New York and in LA, which is actually where I'm from here originally, but did most of my production started in LA. I moved out there when I was like 18 or something.
Okay.
So trying, it's like better to get involved. I think with the smaller companies where you have more room to grow, you can wear a lot of different hats and get more experience in various fields as just opposed to one. Because really, the more accessible you are to work on a production, the more you're worth on it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So production managing, really in this area, production managing, you're kind of like the grease in the gears, right? You got to make sure that people are where they need to be, when they need to be there.
Yeah.
And the best thing to do is to start, you'll live and die by your reputation, right? So if you can start finding smaller productions, whether that's music videos or friends videos or,
Right.
A friend's got a production, work as a producer or production manager just to get on the shoot.
Right.
And just sort of working. You gotta build up the name. The resume is great, but the name is everything. You know what I mean?
Right. Perfect. I was then how would you recommend a friend say I was working with a friend and getting their music reputation out of the getting it known. How would that become recognized to bigger or not necessarily bigger but no or professional production managers or
Sure.
production companies.
Well, it's always good to sort of throw out there to continue, to do your research and continue sort of striving for those bigger companies who are looking for interns or whatever. It's just that I tend to work with smaller companies because, like I said, you can perform more.
Right.
It's easier for you to get your name out there because these are the people that you'll be working with. As big as the industry seems, it's a really tight circle of people. So it's like it doesn't matter what size production you work on, as long as you're doing a good job and you're reliable and you work hard, people are going to want you a part of their production. Now, getting out there to bigger companies and bigger production companies is just a matter of continuing to sort of put your nose to the grindstone and just get out resumes and every time you have another sort of achievement on your resume, tack it on there and send it out to these different people. And then just like us, we get probably anywhere from like 5 in the busier parts of the season, anywhere from like 5 to 10 resumes a week.
Wow.
Of people being like, hey, I would love to be an intern, but we don't offer internships here.
Okay.
Because most of our guys come to us, they have their own equipment, they have some sort of experience, and they're just looking to be a part of a crew.
Right.
Because we kind of treat people kind of like employees, in the sense that once we get an A team together, we use that A team for everything.
Right.
And you're going to find that's pretty consistent throughout this area because people don't need to sort of fool around with trying different people. Like once you get a good thing going, you just sort of stick with that. So finding your production family is a big thing. And a lot of that will probably stem out of who you know at UNCG because those are the people that you've already worked with for however many years. You know? So, in that sense, it's just a matter of trial and error. You know, you're going to kind of keep throwing your resume out there, and people are going to say, "Great, thanks, we'll call you," and you'll never hear anything from them. And then the people who you don't hear anything from are the ones who end up giving you a call later on, being like, "Hey, we need an AC or PA." And you might PA for that production manager. You know, who knows? But you know, that's the other thing is kind of never saying no to work. Because work is work and work begets work.
Definitely.
But you know, there will come a time, kind of in your career, where you're sort of overloaded, and that's when you know that you kind of have a good thing going. Is that you're working enough, it's supporting you and your bills and whatever, and people are calling you for jobs. That's how you know that your name's sort of started getting out there.
Okay, I see. So, like you said,
it's all about evolution. It's not an overnight thing.
Yeah, it's all about your progression and you're getting your name known and doing good work, regardless of what the work is. Just making sure that work.
Exactly. Every production should be the production.
Yep, I got you. I understand. So yeah, now I just have a few questions on like your personal career, and like certain like was the process that you took worth it? Like was making the decision to become a production manager? Would you say all in all, it was a good decision, or would you have made?
Well, so the story is kind of like I said, it sort of spans over 8 years. You know, my big thing is I moved to LA for acting. I thought that was really where my passion was, and it is a passion of mine. But I've never been consistent on what my dream has been.
Okay.
Because I have a lot of them.
Right.
You know, everything from having a movie that I directed in theaters to winning an Oscar, like whatever. There's no dream too big or too small that I haven't sort of come across. So my goal has always just been to be happy, right?
Okay.
I just want to do what I love. If I get paid for it, awesome. As long as I can support myself.
Yeah.
I'm not too keen on like making millions. You know,
right.
that will come. You know, the money will come. As long as you're doing what you love.
As long as you're happy, right.
Exactly, and you're loving what you're doing. It shows through your work and your charisma, and people want to work with that, and so you get work. So I moved out to LA, did acting for, really focused in it, honed it in for like 2.5 years. Took a year off, drank and partied a lot, and then at that point I was waiting tables still, like everyone in the industry does.
Right.
And I made the decision, like the active decision. I sort of was looking around at all my friends who were these big dreamers, but they weren't really doing anything. They were still just sort of serving tables and waiting for their moment in the spotlight.
Yeah.
And I sort of made this active decision that I was never going to have another serving job ever again. I was like, if what I want to do is production, I need to get into production. So like I threw my resume around. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but like I had my like people, like my role models. Like I was huge into like people like Clint Eastwood, Roger Deakin, who's like huge lighting guys, cinematographers. Yeah. These cinematographers, those are my role models. And so I thought, it doesn't matter what side of production I get into. I want to sort of know all sides of production so that one day when I'm directing, I don't just say, hey, something looks wrong, and I don't know how to fix it.
Yeah.
So it was important for me to sort of know all aspects of the industry so that one day someone could look at me and say, that's a great director. So I threw my resume out to, God, I can't even tell you. I just did a packet. I think I sent it out to like 80-something production companies in the LA area. Oh yeah, it cost me the same as like my headshots. It was like $500, like postage and papers and like whatever. It was crazy.
Dang.
Out of all those, one place called me back, and they were like, "We have an opening. We have a director, a commercial director who needs a director's assistant." I was like, great. Came in, met with the guy. He was super cool. Really laid back. His wife was from Croatia, and they had their own production company. And so this company that had sort of brought me in was like their agent. So I was sort of set up with him through them. And it was cool. Like, I got, I was working, I started getting into the production side, but eventually I figured out that this was more of like a personal assisting gig, and I wasn't really having anything to do with the production side of things.
Right.
So I was sitting there, broke as hell, because, internships don't pay shit. Right? Nothing. Like, I think he paid for my lunch every day, and my gas, the gas it took me to get back and forth from his work. And at that time I was living in West Hollywood, and I was driving to Santa Monica every day. It was a trek. So meanwhile, I'm broke. I'm picking up sort of part-time work with it's kind of a crazy side note, but my friend, I have a gymnastics background, so a friend of mine was like, hey, I need a flyer in the circus that he had. And so for like in that year, I was in the circus at nighttime. I was doing stuff for this guy during the daytime, and it was fun, but I was getting tired.
Yeah.
So anyway, a friend of mine was like, hey, I know that you're sort of down on your money, and I have a gig that is, I can't really tell you about it yet, but it's working on the WB lot. You'll be there for 7 days, and it pays $5.50 a day. I was done.
Yeah.
Where do I sign up? And it came to be that this was for art direction, and they just needed someone with muscle to help them sort of move around stuff, and it was for True Blood.
Okay.
So I was like, dude, I just hit the jackpot. You know? So the whole time I was on set, I worked my ass off. We worked like 14, 16-hour days, building this set for this promo that they were shooting. And my art director, Rick Floyd, I got real buddy-buddy with him. I was not out of purpose. It was just, we were kind of kindred. We sort of were on the same wavelength about things, and I just had a blast for those 7 days. And when that 7 days was done, he handed me my check, which was the most I'd ever made in one sitting.
Yeah.
It was something almost $4,000.
What?
And I was like, this is fucking bananas.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. I was like, with $4,000, I know that I can float myself for the next, month or so.
Right.
I just need to really focus on production. Well, Rick called me 2 days after that shoot wrapped and said, we're shooting Weeds in New York. Do you want to come and be my lead man from art direction? I was like, sure. And for the next 2 months, maybe 3 months, we were working 28 days out of the month. My rate never fluctuated. It was either $5.50 or $6.50 a day. And I just worked my ass off.
Right.
I learned and soaked up as much as I possibly could. We had a blast, and at the end of those 3 months, I had it was some crazy number in my bank account. I don't think I was ever expecting to, it was almost a year's salary for some people,
Yeah. Wow.
And so I hung out with him, and then we sort of had some friction about, what was morally correct and whatnot. And eventually I was like, I love LA and I love this production, but after doing this, I kind of see how tight the circles are, and I could do this in North Carolina if I wanted to. I know I could. So, and I was missing the sticks. I was missing the country life and whatever. My dad had passed away a couple years before that, so I was just sort of jazzing to get home.
Right.
And got home, took 6 months off of work, tried to just sort of devise a plan. And then, after that 6 months was up, I sort of reached out to 3 different production companies in the area that I felt really sort of would benefit me, and that I could benefit them. And just I threw my demo out there, my equipment, and that's what I found is that no one really cared. The resume looks good, they're like, ooh, True Blood, ooh, Weeds, but at the end of the day, they were just concerned about what equipment do you have, and let me see your demo. That was my resume.
So, sorry, what actually is a demo? What?
So your demo is it would be hard for a production manager to have a demo, but for a director or a DP or a camera operator, those are things that you can visibly
Okay.
someone's work or as an
Okay.
editor. So I had my demo sort of cut together, and I was like, I was director on this and an editor on this, and so they could get a sort of feel for
Okay.
my
Okay.
style and whatnot.
I got you.
And it was just a good fit for K2, and K2